So, if you grew up sometime between 1965 and 1995, you probably know of a guy commonly referred to as Mr. Rogers. If you don't know who I'm talking about, or you're younger than that, I'm really thrilled to introduce him to you today. See, Fred started his morning television PBS program every morning by putting on a cardigan and singing his song. The lyrics went, "I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So, let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?" In my opinion, Fred was trying to say three things with this song. Number one, I love you just the way you are. No matter who you are or where you come from, you're special. Number two, look for the helpers. There are a lot of gifted people in our community who want to help. So look for them. And number three, be a good neighbor. Everyone is probably going through something that they can't figure out or totally explain. So be kind and be generous and be a good neighbor. I had the distinct pleasure of being Fred Rogers' literal neighbor throughout my childhood. In the early 1970s, my dad was hired by Fred's production company, Family Communications, to be their general manager in Pittsburgh. And almost instantly, my dad became one of Fred's closest friends and he was one of my dad's most valued mentors. He also became a really integral part of our family. Growing up, Fred was always around. He'd come over to the house and deliver a book or a newspaper clipping he'd clipped for one of my parents. Or I'd see him in the business district of Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, and he'd say, "Come on, Nellie, let's go get an ice cream." When I grew up, Fred was always there, wanting to talk to me, to know me, to make me feel valued and wanted and accepted. It was a pretty amazing gift. When I was 12, friendships and daily life did not come easily to me. Many people talk about their awkward phases in childhood. Mine was a top-notch awkward phase. I was taller than everyone, boy and girl in my class. I had huge purple glasses, a mouthful of braces, and a headgear to boots. And I was a very loud child, which made my peers stay pretty far away from me. By the time I entered middle school, I was pretty naive to the way of girl cliques, but it wasn't long before I realized that my out-of-place body and spirit didn't really fit in anywhere. During this time, I struggled. I struggled with sleep. It took me anywhere between 2 to 4 hours to fall asleep at night. I struggled with grades. Around 6th grade, my grade point average was about a D. And I really struggled with acceptance. I desperately wanted to be different than who I was. But the face looking back at me in the mirror wasn't the face that everybody else saw. Fred said, "You've made this day a special day just by being you. There's no person in the world like you, and I like you just the way you are." I don't know for a fact that Fred actually ever said these words to me, but when I was in his presence, I always felt them. The darkness of self-doubt can go pretty deep in a young kid. But if there's one person there, 3 people, 10 people, to say, "I love you just the way you are," well, it doesn't solve the problem, but it gives a whole lot of light when we need it the most. By the time I was in high school, with the help of my parents, Fred, and 2 really close friends, I moved through this phase of darkness and came out the other side. I had a better understanding of my own self, my doubts, and what I was truly capable of. I also had an incredible community around me that lifted me up and pushed me forward. See, another thing Fred taught me is that Pittsburghers are an amazing group of people. Go Steelers. They are always willing to lend you their stories of struggle, perseverance, and triumph. And I learned what it meant to harness this community when I needed them the most. Fred would say, when I was a boy, I would see scary things. My mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You'll always find people that are helping." So when I failed a test that I thought would cost me a grade, I looked for my friends and teachers that would help me through and learn. When my friend Annie was killed in a tragic car accident when I was 16, I found solace and comfort in those that knew her, and we healed together. And on October 27th, 2018, when Robert Bowers walked into the Tree of Life Synagogue, just a mere 2 blocks from my parents' house, and massacred 11 beautiful souls, I listened, and I was relieved by the stories of helpers that worked to heal my community's tears. So many people have asked me since that day, what do you think Mr. Rogers would have said? And I think he would have said, surround yourself with love, and you'll heal together. And then he would have given me a hug. I've moved around a lot since I was that teenager in Pittsburgh. I went from college in New Hampshire to graduate school in Portland, Oregon. My first teaching job landed me in Nashville, Tennessee, and then a sweet guy named Nell Yates, some of you might know him, brought me back to his home in Southern California. In each of these transitions, I did just what Fred taught me. I believed I was special just as I was, and when I ran into a roadblock, I looked for the helpers. It was a good system, and I had it figured out. But there was one missing piece, being a good neighbor myself. Pretty soon in this journey, I figured out I wanted to teach, and not just anything, but I really wanted to teach art. I loved what the creative process did to young minds, and being an artist myself, I wanted to encourage and motivate that journey. But the moment I walked into my first middle school art classroom, I knew that journey was not going to be always easy. I could hear Fred's voice echoing in my head, these kids are special now, each and every one of them, give them time. Their emotions were raw, their questions were real, and I knew that I was exactly the right person to guide and take them through their journey. I was ready to be their neighbor. My journey as a teacher and as a person has evolved over these last 10 years, and Fred's guidance has been with me through it all. Recently, it seems like Fred is everywhere. I can turn on the radio, the television, or just sign into Facebook, and his voice and his picture is right there, staring right back at me. Nearly every time I'm caught a little by surprise, and I almost always start crying. There's something about the sound of his voice that evokes such a deep sense of comfort within me that I often can get pretty emotional. But those tears end in a smile, and then a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for his friendships and for the gifts that he's given me. I know that I would not be here in this profession speaking with you good people this morning had it not been for Fred. And I will always remember the journeys that he's helped me through, and how I know that just by being me, I can be a helper and a neighbor to everyone in my neighborhood. So, let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, you might as well stay. Sing with me. Could you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Thank you.